What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. I know we've been gone kind of spotty schedule there for a minute. We apologize.
COVID struck, and it struck hard, like fucking lightning.
Ooh, yeah. I'm still a COVID virgin, but Mike unfortunately got the vid.
Oh yeah, it popped that cherry hard too.
And I ended up getting a stomach-related illness that put me down for like 2 weeks. So, yeah, it took us, as soon as I got over that, Mike got COVID. So it's been a shit show for us, but everything's back to normal.
I think it's almost like someone's trying to take us out.
I know.
They don't want our brand of bullshit to infest the ears of the masses.
Yeah. Well, with their total ridiculous treachery that they speak, they are letting facts out that we don't want the world to know yet.
The world isn't ready. I've been saying this all along.
Yeah.
You guys just aren't ready for what's really behind the curtain.
Well, I think our listeners are, but not the world at large.
I don't know. Maybe a handful of them are. There's a few of you guys out there that I know can handle it, but Susie, for one, it's past your bedtime. And for two, you don't know shit.
Turn it off.
Yeah. Tommy, you're far too young to be listening to this. Little Billy, your mom told you if she heard you listening to this filth again, you'd be grounded. So I'm calling your mom and you're grounded. I'm not getting sued by the Caring Parents Corporation again. Last time I vowed never to allow that to happen again. So, anyway, you guys aren't ready for the truth. So, we're just going to make up a bunch of bullshit about bees. And that's the Whatcast is now going to be the Bzzcast. And it's all bee conspiracy theories all the time.
I've been diving deep into some conspiracy theory stuff lately, and that's not usually my thing.
Anything bee related?
It will be now.
Yes. So in that vein, since we're changing the trajectory of the show, to only bee related material. This week we're actually going to cover the UAP hearing because, everybody knows that UAPs are secretly bee clusters.
Metallic bee clusters. Yeah, everybody else that you probably listen to regarding paranormal stuff has touched on this, but we're going to do it as well because...
we got to.
I
mean, they had a live official hearing at the House Committee for the fucking UAP, and how could we not cover it? I would be disappointed in us if we didn't, and I'm sure you would be too. So that's what we're doing this week. If you haven't watched it, it's all over YouTube. Like, really just type in House Committee UAP and it'll come up. You could even type in UFO and it'll come up.
Yeah, the U.S. House of Representatives May 17th hearing on UAPs. Just type that in there and it's going to come up, no problem. And from what I gathered after watching it, it's a follow-up to the initial UAP report released last year, right?
Yes.
They released that report and they ordered that a group be made to handle this. And we'll get into the details, but it mainly was a questioning of the group Congress ordered to be created to catalog and investigate UAP reports made. I don't know, Mike, is this group focusing on reports made by military personnel?
No, they do get asked about that later on, if they've received any reports or investigated any reports outside of military channels. One of the members, I can't remember, I think it was Defense.
Moultrie,
yeah. I believe it was him. It could have been the deputy naval intelligence guy, Scott Bray. It was either Bray or Moultrie that said it, but they mentioned that they do have They work very closely with FAA to get any reports that come from civilian sources. So it sounds like from civilian sources, meaning professional pilots, not, assholes like you and me that see a cluster of bees and think it's a UFO. But yeah, he said that they have been taking some non-military reports as well and looking into it.
That's good to hear. Okay, now, I will say that these are howdy-towdy congressmen, fancy government bigwig types.
Right. Yeah, that's fucking House of Representatives. Like, this isn't just some retired asshole. Like, these are active members of Congress.
Yeah, so these men are straightforward, bold-speaking men. And that's pretty much their job, is to speak and to listen. So these dudes are on a time limit. They're used to not bullshitting around, getting to the point of a discussion in as few words as possible. And I find that holding a discussion in this manner kind of reveals the speaker's personality more so than a normal conversation or interview. So for me, it made it very interesting. We get to see the folks who are in charge of all this stuff in a uniquely revealing manner. With that being said, the hearing is opened by Congressman Andre Carson, the representative of the 7th District of Indiana. And I got to say, I love this dude. He covers an element that I hope to see in this hearing. I knew there's going to be a few different aspects from what these people are going to be interested in, why this task force needed to be made. They all mentioned they want UFOs and UAPs, and I got to say this. After watching that, don't you think like, it's probably a smart move, but UAPs was just a word made so that people can talk about UFOs without saying UFO.
Yeah. Because he did one of the questions that gets asked at one point in the hearing was regarding the nature of UAPs, and as if kind of trying to determine whether or not that there's like one source or if UAP is like a catch-all term. And the guy's even breaking it down like, well, does that include gas as well as solid objects? Or is this only used to denote solid objects? And then they were asking if it's a term that's used for something that's just unknown, like we don't have enough data, so we don't know what it is, or is it something that we have the data and we still don't know what it is? And ultimately what it came down to was that the answer is yes. to all of those things. Yes. So the term UAP is just there. And I think it's a term people are more comfortable with, because you say UFO and that's unidentified flying object, which by definition that fits. But I think what we're starting to see now is, in the cover-ups, we've always seen these weird phenomenon, like swamp gas for one, or like thermal, what the hell were they called? And they called them in 1952 when they flew over Washington. They said it was like a thermal atmospheric phenomenon where there was these pockets of warm air in the atmosphere when it was colder at that level in the sky, and as a result the radar picked up these heat anomalies as being UFOs. So I think in this regard, by saying it's unidentified aerial phenomenon, you're not attributing any sort of because flying would indicate some sort of propulsion or some sort of intelligent control. But if it's an unidentified aerial phenomenon, you're just saying that something weird that took place in the sky and we don't know what it is. So it could be a pocket of hot air. It could be an aurora. It could be a shooting star. It could be a fucking balloon. It could be a goddamn alien.
Right.
Or a cluster of bees.
Just a blanket umbrella term to cover everything.
Yeah. And it's it's easily digestible, because no longer, for one, it's a new term. So you no longer have the connotations to aliens necessarily. You can say that's a UAP and then say we've figured out what the UAP was, and it's, it was a fart that was trapped in a bottle that somehow flew in space. Whatever it is, by saying it's a UAP, you are not saying that it's an alien. You're not even saying that it's under any form of intelligent control whatsoever. You're just saying it's something that exists in the sky that was seen that nobody knows what it is. And that's that.
Right. The phenomena part of UAP is the perfect word, I think. Well, they all mention why they want UAPs to be seriously investigated, but Mr. Carson's reasons were some that I was hoping to find. And he was pretty bold dude. He wants all UAP information out of the shadows. He was very interested in transparency. He says that the government has swept the subject of UFOs and UAPs under the rug for years. And he, again, boldly points out that this new team needs to convince them as well as the American people that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, as this is the third group that the DoD has made in order to gather info on UFOs and UAPs. And he also said that the last time the House had a hearing on UFOs and UAPs was over half a century ago. And he wants...
And that was the Condon report, right?
I believe so. And he doesn't want that to be the case. He wants the stigmas removed from discussing and reporting UFOs and UAPs. And he wants the purpose of this hearing is to talk to this group that was ordered to be made in the first UAP report, and they're there. So that's how he opens up this hearing, and then he passes the microphone to a congressman named Rick Crawford. He's a representative of the 1st District of Arkansas, and he also had a perspective that I was hoping to hear, because when it comes to this UFO stuff, if we want the government to take this stuff seriously and investigate this stuff seriously, you're going to need this angle, basically. And he basically said, cool, UFO and UAPs are real now. I just want to make sure that these things are not Russia or China. And he also calls for discussion of UAPs and UFOs to be destigmatized. And he said something that I think a lot of people don't realize. And it's one of the reasons why I was glad we were able to watch stuff like this. And they mentioned right off the bat, this is the declassified meeting. There's going to be a classified meeting.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm going to bring up some stuff later because there were some interesting things or interesting questions that were posed that were met with the response, we should talk about this in the closed session.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Okay. But he mentions the fact that although they are trying to be as transparent as possible, the very nature of studying something like unknown technology breeds the need for classified results, which is, I understand that. And there's something that one of these gentlemen from this new group says that I found interesting as well. But then this congressman kicks the ball to the Chairman Adam Schiff, and he was so enthusiastic. I think every time they played a video, he's like, "Can you rewind that? What am I supposed to be seeing?" And he's
speaking of that video that they were trying to get the footage of the UFO flyby.
Oh God,
that was embarrassing.
It was so painful to watch.
I just thought about myself, like, if when I was in college and I had to present a project or whatever, and if I was using a video and I was trying to show it to support something that I was trying to explain to people, and I did something like this, like, I feel like that would have negatively affected my grade. And here we are wasting almost 10 minutes where they're trying to get this video. Like, if you're bringing this video to fucking Congress, why wouldn't you have the slow motion already set in and like freeze frame so you can see they were literally playing what looked like a YouTube video of this UFO flyby where the object is on camera for like a frame, maybe 2 frames. It's like blink and you miss it, gone type of deal. And they're trying to pause it on this frame, and they cannot find it.
Right.
And-
They could have downloaded an app, put that footage in it, and it would have done it for them.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, who the fuck is responsible for bringing this video, and why the hell didn't you bring an edited video so you can show very clearly what you're trying to tell people?
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous.
It took me rewinding it a few times, but you can definitely see what they're trying to point out, but they should have had that ready.
Yeah. Have still frames ready to go. Like, make it a slide, like,
Yeah.
I was embarrassed for everybody involved in that. I'm like, this is goddamn. At what point do you just say, all right, fuck it, we're not going to use this?
Yeah.
Like, they spent a lot of time trying to. Oh man. Anyway, I just thought that was fucking amateur hour right there.
It was disappointing. But this Chairman Adam Schiff, he points out that UFOs and UAPs have been reported for decades, and they have failed to form a group to study them seriously. He himself again calls for transparency, and he says that now that UFOs are measurable by multiple instruments, that they're real, and as in they're in our airspace. And he wants our military personnel as well as civilians to be safe. If these things are really there, the things that have been reported for decades, then our skies are not as safe as we thought. And there needs to be, and should have been, a group made to investigate these things back in the 50s.
Yeah, and they do the two members that are there I shouldn't say testifying, but presenting this new program to Congress, Moultrie and Bray. They do get questioned about their knowledge regarding any other sort of program since between Blue Book and ATIP. And Bray, his response I found to be very interesting. And with a lot of these, with government and military people, when they're trying to skirt around the truth or give half answers, it's interesting to listen to what they have to say or the way that they phrase things, because especially when you're, at an official hearing of Congress, like, you don't want to be on record and then get called out for it later. But he was asked if he was aware of anything between Blue Book and ATIP. And he starts out by saying that he's trying to explain his position currently and what he's doing. And then he's asked point blank, are you aware of any other project that has researched this phenomena? And he doesn't say no. He says, I am not aware of any official projects.
Ooh.
That's the way he phrased it. I'm not aware of any official projects. Instead of just saying, no, I'm not aware of any official projects. Meaning that maybe he's aware of some black projects or hidden secret projects.
Ooh.
And he had a few answers that were like that throughout this, where it was like he didn't straight up answer, but he kind of gave an answer that kind of would protect him while also, basically pleading the fifth, I guess.
Right. Okay.
We cannot confirm or deny sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as Mike mentioned, the two people representing this newly formed group, they called it AIMSCOG. Do you remember what that stood for?
No, I don't.
I don't think that.
And he even said that that name probably isn't going to be the name. It's just like a temporary name.
Right. And Councilman Carson mentioned in the beginning, why should they need to explain that they're going to actually do their job. He says that this group that you've formed now, this AIMSCOG, they don't even have a director yet. But the two people that are there representing this new group is the Honorable Ronald Moultrie, the person Mike just mentioned, and Scott Bray, who is the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. And
Moultrie is the Undersecretary of Defense.
Yes, so hard,
no slouch.
no slouches here. And with the Honorable Moultrie starting the statement, he talks about that they want as much transparency as possible within reason. They want to destigmatize UFO and UAP reporting and discussion. And he promises to do what the last two groups couldn't do. And it's just basically the same old, right? Just like answering yes to all the questions on the...
Basically saying, yeah, we're gonna seriously look into the phenomena. We're going to seriously report on it. We want to try to be as transparent as possible. Did you find it weird that he was asked whether or not he was a science fiction fan, though?
Yeah, I think that's one.
That was really, like, I'm like, are they trying to delegitimize him, like, right out the gate? He's the fucking Undersecretary of Defense. Like, fuck out of here. What's going on? And I liked his response, though, how he's like, yes, I am a science fiction fan. I have attended science fiction conventions, but I'm also a fan of science. I'm like, yes, you tell him, guy.
Yeah, it seems like I was waiting for somebody to make a jab like that. And I don't know why that congressman said that. It was Carson who said that. And I was kind of bummed out that he asked him, I understand you're, like a fan of science fiction. And I think Moultrie responded perfectly. Like you said, yeah, I am, but I'm also into science. I go to conventions and he didn't deny the natural curiosity of wanting to know what these things are and find out what's going on. But then I think it was Congressman Rick Crawford who, Moultrie said he doesn't dress up when he goes to the conventions. And Rick Crawford said, that wasn't a real convincing response about dressing up.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed. And it was cool because Moultrie just bounced right back. He was just like, I don't dress up, but I do go. And he said, to heck with it. I'll break the ice. I go to these conventions. And he handled it how it should have been. It was good to see.
Yeah. And he even mentioned, he's like, we're normal people, just like all of the American people out there. We have our own interests. We have our own hobbies. This isn't just what we do, which it was nice. I think it was, to me, at first I took it as being like, they were trying to discredit him right off the bat, but then it kind of, based on his response and then the little comment about that wasn't a very strong thing saying you don't dress up. To me, it just felt like buddies just busting balls,
right?
I'm gonna see if I can get him to crack. Watch this. I'm gonna ask him about sci-fi.
Yeah, it was very much in jest, and it was uncomfortable as it happened. But once it was done, it was almost like it needed to happen. It made everybody there comfortable.
Yeah. Everyone, and I loved when Moultrie was talking about it. You see this dude behind him and you can only see the bottom half of his face, but he's got this huge stupid smile on his face. It's great.
It is. All right, well, Mr. Bray, he had a very interesting angle as well. He had taken a very serious stance on investigating these UFOs and UAPs, and he mentions an increase of reports of UFOs and UAPs at military training facilities. And that's what's concerning him. He says that the increase of reports are due to their new implications on reporting UFO and UAP sightings, interactions. And this one was a little bit eye-opening for me. It's that video that you were talking about earlier, where it's this 3-second long clip of this thing that flies by that they try to pause this video on so that they can see.
They were successful eventually. I should add that.
Okay, yeah, I kind of skipped that. It was too long. It was like you said, over 10 minutes, and them trying to pause a video.
Well, what they ended up doing was they just started talking about it instead. And Adam Schiff was like, "Well, we'll just explain to us what we're supposed to be seeing here." And then, as he was explaining it, they were able to finally fucking hone in on this thing and pause it as it was coming by, so you could see it. But it's basically, I'm sure anyone who's been following these UAP video releases has seen it. But it's a 3-second video taken inside a cockpit, and you, for the briefest of moments, see this reflective spherical object fly past the cockpit.
Yeah, which just whizzes
maybe
by.
A frame or two. Yeah, and that's it. That's all there is to the video.
Yeah, and he kind of plays that video, and after they can't really see what's going on, I mean, he kind of turns around and looks at him, and he's like, you see what I'm fucking working with here? He says, that was, what the fuck do I do with that? These clips that are sent in average 3 or 4 seconds long, and he says that's a long one when they get these video clips. And he knows it's not what people want to hear, but a clip like that's not enough to say that it's definitely a UFO or a UAP or alien craft. We talked about it a little bit before we started. He goes on to straight up debunk the triangle UFO videos. And
Yeah,
and it's
which in my notes I just wrote Jeremy Corbell triangle bullshit.
well, if you guys remember from when we talked about this a few episodes ago. We talked about this video in particular.
We specifically did an episode on this triangle video when it first came out. This was I think this was the 4th video that Jeremy Corbell released saying that were being leaked out, and was talking about these pyramid UFOs that were being reported by people on board a ship, but they didn't really provide much context beyond that. And he released them like saying, look, these are authentic UFOs, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I think it was maybe last year, it might have been at the beginning of this year, a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew, which is like special effects guys that primarily work with like CGI. They were looking at some of these UAP videos, and this was one of them that they saw, and they debunked it on their show, saying what we're seeing is a light source that is going through a single lens on the night vision and reflecting off of, basically it's like a type of lens flare that takes a regular point of light, and because of the way it's reflecting off of the night vision, the camera inside the night vision lens, that it creates this triangle shape. So they actually showed this video, and they didn't really provide any context at first. They just showed the video for what it was, explained, that there were these triangles that were recorded and that appear to be blinking. And then Bray went on to explain what caused this, and it was exactly what those special effects guys said it was. It was the light reflecting off of the lens of this night vision device, and it created these. And he even showed a second video that took place, I think he said a year after that initial video, showing the same thing. And he was asked if they were able to do any tests to confirm this theory that he's proposing. And he said that there have been several tests done that show that's exactly what this was. And so the triangles were actually unmanned drones, and the light on the drones was being reflected, and it formed these triangle shapes.
Right.
So to me, I've been saying for a long time now that Jeremy Corbell is bullshit, and he's trying to get in on it. Like, I think that once he got in with Bob Lazar and started seeing all the popularity, because if you remember when that Bob Lazar documentary came out that Jeremy Corbell produced, anywhere where Bob Lazar was, Jeremy Corbell was there. And he had no reason to be there, but he was there. And I feel like he got a taste of this, and now it's like, oh shit, now I'm going to jump on this to the stars thing, and then I'm going to jump on the ATIP thing and the hang out with Lou Elizondo, and like I just feel like he's trying to gain relevancy through this whole thing, and putting this thing out there as being a leaked UAP and then having it debunked so quick after you put it out there. I don't know. I just anytime that dude, like, I used to be a huge fan of his too. Like, he had some really cool shit back in the day, but it's like once this once this whole Bob Lazar thing came out, things changed with him, and I feel like he's now part of the disinfo campaign.
I'll say that I'm not ready to call bullshit on him yet. I do agree with, I don't know, I watched him appear on this show and this show and this show, and then this show, he had like, a pretty nice Rolex on. I'm like, okay. I understand.
There it is.
There it is. But I kind of, I'll wait to see what else happens with him. But one thing I liked is that Bray showed these two videos, the original pyramid UFO footage, and then this one from, I think he said it was a couple years later on opposite coasts from another naval ship of the same thing that's going on. And he said that those videos had been unexplained for a couple years. I mean, that was unexplainable footage, and that this is the work that they're going to do in this group, and they were able to debunk this footage. And he says, but with two separate reports reporting the same thing and finding the cause of the irregularities in his videos to be, something that is enough to eliminate UFOs and UAPs. But he goes on to say that that's not always going to be the case, that there are cases where two corresponding circumstances won't be enough to identify anything or naming what they think it is or labeling it. So this was debunked. I think it's pretty reasonable. They reasonably debunked it, and he goes on to say that we're not going to do just two sourcing like that. We're going to investigate even further on some of these things, because some of these things they're receiving call for that. And I thought that was very interesting to hear. And he goes on to say another thing that was a little bit eye-opening for me. We always talk about, like we did earlier, about what's going to remain classified. And Moultrie kind of basically said he wants to ride the edge of what's classified and what he can release, and in the name of transparency. There's too much information out that's proved that these things are really there and they're really happening. But he goes on to say something like, sometimes I'll get a piece of footage of something that's a UFO or UAP, and it's incredible footage. But just the way that it was captured, just the equipment that was used to capture this footage, they can't release that because it would be a breach of security. We can't let our adversaries know that we have this type of telescopic viewing. So he's like, that's the type of problems that we're running into here. He's like, there's so many things that we're getting that are going to remain classified. And I appreciated the honesty of everything that Bray said.
And I remember kind of in that vein when they first released the Tic Tac video, and when it was leaked, all of the information along the edge of the picture, or the video, I should say, was all blurred. So, and once it was finally declassified, all that blurred stuff was shown, and what that was showing the conditions the jet was flying in, the altitude, the speed, basically what it was information related to the jet itself and what it was doing during that training exercise. And that's why it was blurred out, because that was classified at the time. And then they made the decision to declassify it so that other people could, I guess people in the know would be able to use that information to further research what was being seen there.
Right. Well, Congressman Carson starts with the first question for this new UAP task. It's the new version I think it was called the UAP task force, right? The last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he tells him again, this is the third time that a group like this has been created to address this stuff. Why should we trust the info that you're even going to give us, And Moultrie says that the Secretary of Defense is chartering this effort. And that was shocking to hear. And I thought, wow, good. That's where all the fucking money's at, right? Is defense. And he said, so they handed this off to the Undersecretary for Intelligence Security. And he quickly says, which is me. So I was like, holy shit. So this dude is the Undersecretary for Intelligence Security. This is quite a step up of people heading a project like this, right?
I mean, I would say so. But then I also, with the way that the government works, maybe they're just putting like a big enough name out there so people think it's being taken seriously, but a name that is also that has to answer to someone in power so that they can, be forced to shut the fuck up if they start talking too much.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, because the next thing he says is that their method of taking these reports and keeping record of these things and investigating things is going to be ran much closer to the line of government and military operations instead of like sending out field agents. There's methods to how they do things as far as investigating things and recording things, and it's going to be done that way. So that's going to be a strong benefit to this incarnation of this team.
The first part, like, everybody got their, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but anyone who had questions, I believe they were all given 5 minutes to question Moultrie and Bray, and then they would go back. But to me, one of the most interesting points, it was in the second half. I think it was the first point. I wrote down the time, but it happens around the 50-minute mark when Representative Mike Gallagher, who's a Republican from Wisconsin's 8th District, his time came up, and he starts asking Moultrie and Bray about incidents where UFOs were spotted over bases. And then he specifically references the Malmstrom incident, which we've talked about a number of times on the show, where the UFOs were able to shut down 10 warheads, and a red fireball was seen hovering over the base.
Yeah, with that soldier, the security soldier calls it in, and the officer in charge
tells him to shoot at it.
Yeah,
and he says, "I don't think it's gonna work."
He tells him, "Thanks, sir, but I don't think that's gonna do anything."
Yeah, that's the one. So he asks them about it, and they both kind of like look at him, just like dumbfounded that he would bring that up. And then so he asks them specifically, "Were you what did you find out about this case?" And both of them just kind of sit there and they're like, we don't know. We didn't investigate it. And he's like, well, this happened in the 60s. Who would have investigated that? And then this was when another instance where Bray kind of beats around the bush with his answer. But he basically says that under the scope of their current objectives, that's not something that their group has investigated. But if anyone were to bring them any documents, they would definitely look into it. And then and he's like, well, wouldn't you guys be the ones to look into this? And they said, yeah, but it would have to come from an official request. And then he goes, well, I don't mean to say that I'm an authority figure by any means, but I am a member of Congress, and I work for the American people, and I would like to officially request that you look into that for me.
Nice.
And he's like, and he goes again, I don't know if this is real. I'm not trying to say one way or the other, but because they were saying that they didn't have any documentation, and he just goes, the story is out there. And he's like, I'm not an expert by any means, but I know about it. So it would seem to me that you should know about it since you're the one heading this investigation. And then he officially asked them in the hearing to look into this case. And they said they would. Who knows if they actually will. But then he goes, after that, he's like, I would also like to bring up a memo from 2019 that's known as the Admiral Wilson memo. And apparently it's a memo where this Admiral Wilson had been looking into UAPs and was told there was nothing there. But neither Bray nor
Moultrie.
Neither Bray nor Moultrie had ever heard of this memo. So then he's like, well, it just so happens I have a copy of the memo here, and I would like unanimous consent from everyone gathered to officially put this on the record. And he gets unanimous consent and submits this memo for the record. And then neither one of these guys had ever even fucking heard of it. And this guy's just like schooling them about these UFO things. It was crazy. It was so fucking awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. That was definitely my favorite point in the whole thing. And it happens towards the end. Like I said, it's like 50 minutes in. But after him, there's a Democrat named, and I very much apologize if I mispronounce this, but Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, who is a Democrat from the Illinois 8th District. And he was asking about, he wanted to know about how these craft were being recorded and what type of instruments were being used. And then he brings up USOs, and he wanted to know if they had any instruments that were documenting cases where UAP ended up going into the water. And instantly, Bray said, I think we should leave questioning for that for the closed session.
Ooh, no shit.
Yeah.
That's funny because Moultrie said right in the beginning when they first got the first question from Carson, one of the last things he said was, we're definitely be, doing our best to document the UFO UAP phenomenon as well as water-based phenomenon and water-based USOs. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that right away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering if he wanted to keep it in a closed session because they were giving away like spy secrets, like the instruments they use to view things underwater. But I just thought that was very interesting. He completely shut him down and didn't answer that question at all and said save it for the closed session. And there was another thing that Bray was questioned on regarding information that was being shared between our allies or countries that might not necessarily be friendly. And are we sharing our information with them? Are they sharing their information with us? And he was like that. He again said that questioning or answers for that sort of question should be saved for the closed session. But then I can't remember the representative that asked him, but he then reworded it and said, how about publicly? Publicly, is there any countries that we are working with that have publicly announced that they're experiencing this thing that are sharing information with us? And Bray did specifically mention China as experiencing similar phenomenon and that they have shared some of this information with us.
Really?
Yeah. But then he did give the caveat that, countries that we're not necessarily friendly with may just be giving us information in the hopes that we will share our information, and what they're giving us might not be actual real information.
Right. Yeah, we have that too, bro. Tell me about yours.
Yeah, exactly. But from that point, it kind of, it was just kind of the closing, or I shouldn't say closing arguments, but like concluding statements. There really wasn't too much other information shared, but to me, that whole exchange with Mike Gallagher about the Malmstrom base, like I can't believe no one else brought that up, or maybe he had just gone above and beyond in researching ahead of this. I don't know, but the fact that he had brought it up and officially requested that they look into that incident is pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, I got to say that my mom got to watch that before I did and messaged me. She goes, they didn't know about the fucking Maelstrom shit. She found that funny.
Yeah, it was very strange. Because when he first brought it up, like they were like, they had to have known about it. Like that's a pretty fucking famous case. And especially when your ICBMs go offline, like that's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. So all in all, Do you think this was a good meeting? I mean, it's
I mean, honestly, I didn't feel like there was. I'm of mixed mind. Like, I don't think that there was any real information provided to that would give any insight as into any of the phenomenon. I do think it's important that it's, one, being treated seriously, and two, it sounds like there's actual interest in the phenomenon. I've got to think that senators and congressmen, like, they're not high ranking enough within the government and the military to be in on the cover up necessarily. I think maybe there's certain members that might have more information than others due to some of the ties that they might have. But I don't think that it's necessarily something that they are actively covering up. So to see some people enthusiastically involved with the questioning and actually seemingly genuinely curious about what's going on and how it's being researched and how it's going to be shared. A number of the people that were questioning specifically stated how it should be something that the American people should be made aware of if, in fact, this is a real phenomenon. And they did say, we understand national security and all that, but I feel like we should be sharing all information that we can with the public. So I think it's a step in the right direction. But with all of these things, anytime we've seen this sort of thing come out, it's never conclusively resolved. We had Project Blue Book, and you even had Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was a skeptic, become a believer based on his research. But then the Condon Committee came out and were like, no, there's nothing to it. It's all explainable phenomenon, and there's nothing further to explore. And then, according to these guys, research died in the water. There was never anything else beyond that until ATIP was uncovered and finally declassified. Which I gotta, to me, that just seems like total bullshit. Like, you're telling me that for fucking since the 60s, there's been nothing. Like, you had 50 years worth of stuff go on, and none of this was ever researched
or
like
recorded.
You had all of those flyovers of different military bases. I mean, fuck. We've done 2 episodes on military. No, we've done 4 episodes on military witnesses to UFOs.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that no one ever took their report seriously? Come on. There's and just that right there, the fact that, again, Bray says, I'm not aware of any official projects. It shows me that they're not being fully transparent in this, because there's no fucking way you're going to make me believe that for 50 years, nothing else was ever done. Condon report came out and they're like, okay, that's a wrap. And then just out of nowhere, they're like, you know what? Let's take a look at this UFO thing again 50 years later. Like, fuck off. There's no fucking way. What I think is that the Tic Tac video came out and they're like, we need damage control. Let's roll out the ATIP thing and we can say that we're on it. We're already investigating it and blah. I feel like that's what ATIP was more PR, so that the military isn't like, yeah, we've been covering this up all along. They're like, no, we haven't been covering this up. We've just been investigating it, and we didn't have any reasonable conclusions, so we didn't think it was important enough to bring it out.
It kind of seems
whenever the government's involved, there's always a certain level of fuckery to be expected.
That's the truth. It kind of seems like they were testing to see if people like Tom DeLonge and Jeremy Corbell and Bobby Laser documentaries would be a suitable mouthpiece for the subject. And I think they were surprised when people weren't. They want official documentation. They want them to admit shit. I think that's something that we have to remember when we get information from them is that, I mean, I'm still blown away watching this hearing and having these guys they're talking about UFOs, man. Call it whatever you want. They're talking about UFOs and they're like feeling a little proud, like, wow, they're going to put in some work. They're going to do everything they can to at least record these encounters. We're going to see a steady stream of videos that they're going to declassify. It's going to be pretty cool from here on out. But my mind just doesn't let me forget. It's like, well, they not also didn't admit that this was real, but they lied about this shit for like the past like 75 years. So again, this could be another backhanded trick to distract us. This could be another group that's set up to fail. Who knows? Sounds like that one congressman listened to podcasts though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I would have liked to get some more questions. I suppose this would probably be more UFO nerd. You'd have to be a UFO nerd to really get into it. But I would have liked to hear some questions regarding the whole Richard Doty stuff and how the fuck was he involved in this disinformation thing if the government was not involved with researching UFOs at that point in time?
Right.
Because he said that he was working as a member of the Navy or was it the Air Force? I think it might have been the Air Force. But he was working with the military as a disinformation agent. And he fucked with Paul Benowitz that whole time while being an active member of the military. And then came out and said that he was a bullshit artist and was a disinfo agent. So where does that fall into this whole thing?
Right. I think we can't bypass I don't know. It's kind of like it's like getting somebody to admit something. Well, I'm glad that you're telling me, but I'm not going to forget. How long have you been doing this? They have a lot of explaining to do. I mean, admitting that these things are real comes with them having a lot of explaining to do with tons of other shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's a step in the right direction. I like the people who are. Like they said, they don't have a director for this Ames Cog group yet, but who they have there now, I'm cool with it. I think that, like I said, at least we're gonna get some more cool videos coming soon.
Hopefully,
yeah.
But I don't know. At the very least, it's entertaining, and that's all I can really say. I'm always very skeptical when it comes to government saying they're going to be providing truth. Maybe I'm just jaded, but it's, the government only exists because they bullshit the people. And, why would you change that after all this time? Just keep bullshitting, but provide the illusion of truth. It's all an illusion, though. Just remember that. Just remember, the government, when they're putting this stuff out there, they're not thinking about you sitting there in your chair or couch or car or bed or walking, whatever the fuck you're doing while you're listening to me. They're not thinking about you. They don't care about you. They're doing damage control, and that's what's going on. That's all this is. It's fucking circus. It's here for our consumption so that we can feel like the government is doing something, but they're not doing fuck all. They're just along for the ride like the rest of us. At least the people at this level. The real people that know, they're not going to let the lower guys anywhere near this shit. They're going to keep them in this mystery world where they can say we're investigating it, but we don't know what it is. Well, the people that are really in on it are like,
we just got to hope like some creepy hacker group gets impatient and they just break into their cool government computers and just release like biological charts of 12 different species of aliens. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that's what I want. So, all you crazy hackers, get on that shit.
Please don't hack governmental computers, please.
Don't listen to Mateo. Hack only government computers. Leave the civilians alone. You don't need our credit card information or social security numbers. Go to the military and get the UFO shit. Get UFO passports. That's what we want. We want alien. We want Zeta Reticuli passports.
Right,
Thank
intergalactic
you
travel
for
logs.
listening to
That's
the
what we want.
Whatcast.
Yes.
You can find us on Twitter,
Precisely.
Instagram,
Give me
Facebook,
cards under
iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.